Go Getters podcast. Enrico in the building. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing
Good,
great.
man.
I really like your shirt. I didn't want to bring it up until we got on the pod, but
Did you win today?
did you win today?
I win every day.
Do you?
Hey.
That's what I like to hear. I would like to say that I definitely think I won the day, but since you win everything, you kind of shortcutted my answer. I was going to ask, did you win today? And if so, how was your day? What did you do?
Yeah, it was good. Today was a very, very long day.
Yeah.
Woke up this morning. I had to run down to our wood shop where we make everything, and I'm working on a custom table, so I had to go down there and finish dyeing that and whatnot. And then as I'm about to leave there, one of our former partners was there with a couple guys in the back building looking at some of the equipment that I was telling you guys about with the rubber company.
Yeah.
Because they were interested in buying it, so I had to go back there and kind of give them the whole scenario on what that was. Then I headed down to the showroom, got to catch up because I wasn't in yesterday. I was down at the shop all day yesterday. And then I had a meeting with an advertising agency.
Ah.
Of course, in the middle of the meeting, you get customers walking in, so I had to sit there and go talk to them and do that whole deal. Then left, went to training, went to soccer practice, and now I'm here.
Ah, busy day.
I'd say you're a man in many hats.
A little bit.
That's awesome, man. Well, first thing I want to say, I like the shirt as well. We just had this conversation on the last episode that we did, the Corporate Nightmares episode, and we came to this realization that if you just accumulate those little wins every single day, then that can lead to something truly great. Building momentum, it's really important.
Yes.
Like winning the, make like right when you wake up, make your bed, win that. And, right when you wake up, eat a good breakfast, win that. All those little wins, good day. So that's awesome.
Absolutely. And I was actually watching one of your segments that was kind of the opposite, where you're talking about, the day started out like kind of crappy.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, it kind of snowballs and you're in quicksand, and the harder you fight, and that, like, I'm not going to say that used to happen to me, because it still does, but I've noticed that, like, when you sit back, and whether you just go and sit in some silent thought for a few minutes, even just like do some box breathing for like a minute, how big of a difference it makes from whatever that one stimulus was that just completely turned you around immediately. You're going to sit there and you're going to be like, all right, I'm good. Let's go.
Yeah. So what's your routine usually like when you are in some quicksand per se?
Experiencing the funk.
Yeah. Like, how do you pull yourself out of it and then begin to start winning again?
It's different because, and somebody years ago told me this. They're like, yeah, we were talking about this, and they're like, yeah, my grandmother had a perfect example of this. She would always say, sometimes you just want to live in shit. And sometimes you do. Sometimes you want to sit there and you want to wallow and just like want to feel whatever those feelings are.
Yeah.
And then eventually you get to the point where you're just like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm over. Like, I'm goodbye. But when I know that I have a bunch of stuff going on, I do exactly that. Like, I might just sit there and, throw on like some songs that I like, that I know, like, kind of bring me back, like James Taylor. Awesome. Or just sit there and just like breathe and calm down and just like assess the situation.
Yeah.
Is it really that dire? Is it really going to be that big of an issue? No. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah. Well, ultimately what that feeling is overthinking, and like you overwhelm yourself. At least that's how I experience it. And I agree with you in that regard too. Like, I know one of my biggest hacks for getting out of any funk like that, or most importantly, like when I'm mad about something, is exactly how you worded it. Like, I would make myself do like 5 deep breaths, just like a and if you're still like pissed after that, there's maybe a reason as to why you're pissed. But like, say like you wanted to act off impulse, I always tell people to just do that. Like, breathe heavily 5 times. And if you could do that, if you still want to do your impulsive action, go for it. But I guarantee you probably won't by the end.
Yeah. And for the most part, you're definitely right. And I agree with you. I mean, my entire life, even before like we really had a grasp on, mental health and so on and so forth, I've unpacked a lot of it myself over the years. Just I'm a science guy by nature, biophysics degree from Syracuse. Like, I've been in a lab like from high school on. And it was always just something where I was like, okay, why? Like, what's the reason behind it? But I agree with you. It would start with overwhelming, which translates to anxiety, which translates to depression, which translates to, okay, what are we going to do now?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the step-by-step process, similar to what you were saying.
That's like, my brain operates very similarly too. I'm like a more scientific thinker. Like, I like to get to the bottom of things. And typically I think that is the root cause of the overthinking problem, because I'm thinking of every possible scenario as to why I might feel this way, what contributed to it, how did I sleep last night, what did I eat? And then that's like such a spiral for me. But that's like my experience with that every time. But I relate to you in that way, because that's where I believe my overthinking stems from, my ability to be able to think about all these different like little avenues, or like really trying to get to the bottom of something. But it's overstimulating in a way, and it gets very chaotic when I do that.
It is, and you have to be cognizant about it, and you have to recognize it in real time, and you get better as you go along. I came across this 80-20 rule years ago, because I was the same way. Overthinking, perfectionist. I needed 100% of the information in order to go make a decision. And very rarely do you get that. So it stunted me in a lot of areas, personally, professionally, emotionally, so on and so forth. And it came down to, I read in a book, and they were like, okay, if you have 80% of the information, you have enough information to go make an educated decision. And it's not the end all be all, because nothing is the end all be all. You have the ability to pivot and, transfer your thought process, and, okay, this isn't working right now. Let's go this way and let's try this. Okay, maybe this works. Maybe it doesn't, and then we got to pivot again. If not, let's keep on this path because it is working. But that was for me, like, I needed to know A to Z from the get. And I'll tell you right now, like, that does not work.
No, it doesn't. And it's like, it's so hard to even try to make that work. It's just so complicated.
And I would look at people who, weren't necessarily as smart as me, whatever that means, and they're sitting there wildly successful with whatever they're doing because they just had the ability, or maybe just the ignorance, that they didn't care. And they were just like, okay, I'm just going to go do this thing. And we're going to figure it out along the way.
And kind of like Snow, our buddy Snow.
Or like Brian, like the logic brain.
Yeah, it's hard to get things done that are productive when you're in your head the whole time.
Yes.
Right? Like, you can't really move forward when you're anxious all the time, or you're fucking depressed or whatever. You have to, at least at some point, be level-headed. Right? Which I think is interesting.
It was like that quote that I brought up. I think I brought it up on the Corporate Nightmares episode when we were talking about the firefighter. Remember that quote that I brought up? Some guy, I guess he knew a firefighter, and he had a bad problem, like overthinking scenarios. And the guy said to him, he was like, do you know how you're going to get to your destination? And he was like, well, no, like, that's my problem. I don't know, like, which steps are going to lead me where. I don't know, like, what I'm going to do, whatever, so-and-so. The guy asked him, he was like, but do you know your next step? Like, just your next step. Do you know your next step? And he was like, well, yeah, yada, yada, yada. My next step is to blank. And he was like, all right, well, just do that. And then do it again. What's your next step? And then just
getting out of the woods.
Tackle your next step. And I think that's very important, because it kind of cancels out that overthinking problem, because if you're thinking about 10 different scenarios or ways a situation can go, you're going to be wrong 9 times out of 10 anyways. It's really just, I really don't know what it is, like the whole overthinking thing. That's a problem I've actually battled with my entire life.
It's a fear of failure.
Yes.
That's what it comes down to. But if you rework what you consider failure, and that was something. So for me, if I lost a game, failure. If I didn't do well on a test, failure. Because especially in our school system, you get one shot to take a test. That's not life. Like, that's not how people operate on your day to day. So if you don't look at failure as, okay, after this one thing goes wrong, like, that's the end all be all. If you just look at it as, okay, I learned something from that. Now what step do I take? Then really you never fail. The only time you fail is when you give up.
And you believe
and like that's like not like a novel, thought like a million people have had, but understanding it and implementing it is a game changer. Absolute game changer. And that's why I like created this saying for this shirt,
Oh, that's your merch?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, this is for the gym that I have. Some of the training, some of the kids were like, "Come on, coach! Like you got to make merch. You got to make merch." Like, and I'm like, "All right, whatever." That's and this is something that I thought of years ago, and to me, it's all encompassing. It's just like you guys were asking me before. Did you win today?
Yeah.
What does that mean for you? Did you show up to school?
Yeah.
Did you take that test? Did you do well on that test? Did you not do well on that test? What did you learn? Did you show up to work?
Yeah.
How was your day? So the question becomes like, did you win today for you?
Yeah.
Not necessarily for, Bob down the road or, Sally, your ex-girlfriend who you want to try to impress or whatever it is, but for you, because you compare yourself, it's going to steal a lot of your joy and your peace of mind, just like we were talking about.
Yeah, very much so.
So you need to figure out for yourself, what does this mean? And it's applicable to literally anything in your life.
Where do you think that comparison comes from? Because it seems like a lot of people are cursed with that today, with comparing themselves to other people, especially people that they see on social media.
Well, so that you're exactly right. And that's, I mean, there's always been a comparison, but it is so rampant today because we have so much more at our fingertips.
Yeah.
Yes.
We open our phone, and so with coaching, it's the same thing. I have kids coming to me, "Coach, can you teach me how to do this? Can you teach me how to do that?" And I'm like, "You need to learn how to like trap the ball first."
Yeah.
Like every single time. And I saw that, and I'm like, "You are watching a highlight reel of the best players in the world."
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you right now, if you watch the B-roll and all that,
Yeah.
you're going to see them mess up a lot. But you're not seeing that. You just think that, "Oh, okay, because I didn't get this the first time, that's it." And it'll be the same question. Well, like we'll be doing like shooting drills, and I'll go up and I'll do this or do that, and they're like, "Well, how?" And I'm like, because when I was your age, to sound like the old guy, when I was your age, I would get a bag of balls, I would go down to the field, and I would sit there and shank hundreds of balls in order to figure it out.
Yeah.
And, is it fun? No, it's frustrating as anything. But so is like, being at a certain point in a very high stakes game.
Yeah.
And where's your character? What's it going to be at that point?
So now you coach soccer, correct? And you've been doing that, you said how many years?
15 years.
15, 14?
I want to say this is my 14th season. I was at Dallas for 12, and this is my second year at Lehman.
Ah, nice.
Yeah.
So you played at 2 schools in the area that everybody deemed to like be like, what's the right word for it? Like those are like winning schools. Like when we were in high school, Dallas, especially football, 'cause that's more or less what I'm referring to. He and I both played football, but Dallas and Lake Lehman were always 2 schools that were looked at as like the winners. Like they won a lot of games.
Yeah.
So you coached there for that long. What are you taking from being around like these kids, like in the modern day? Like, are they teaching you anything in terms of like your coaching abilities? Are they improving on that for you at all?
Patience.
Yeah, that's good.
It's one of those things where, I have seen a shift in players and students in general.
Yeah.
I used to teach at Wyoming area in Dallas.
Oh, really?
For a few years, and it's definitely different from the kids that I played with compared to the kids when I first started coaching compared to the kids now, and what it comes down to. And again, I didn't realize this until I ended up reading a book. It's called The Manager or something like that, and every chapter was a point in the point of view of whatever professional soccer coach in the world. So, Pep Guardiola had a section and Jose Mourinho had a section, and they would talk about something different. And the one was Sir Alex Ferguson from Manchester United. And he coached for 1 billion years. Yeah. And he said, like the players have changed from when I first started to now. When I first started, you're sitting there and they could, you could berate them and you could do this. And they would get pissed off and they would play better. Now you do that and some of them break down. Yeah. And you have to understand your individual players. Yeah. And when I read that, I was like, if that's happening in the best league in the world, why would I think that would be any different in high school, where Dallas, kids are still figuring out who they are? So they have that whole bag that they have to unpack as well. So I was able to kind of take that and be like, okay, I have to, as a coach, put more emphasis on getting to know the kids individually, what makes them tick, who I could, go after and it's going to make them better, who I have to sit there and, kind of throw my arm around when I need to, kind of go at them a little bit when I need to. And it's a little bit tougher because, there's not just like one overarching theme, but at the end of the day, if I'm able to get out of each player individually what I need to, then it's worth it.
Yes.
I think that's a really strong lesson in leadership, because as a sound leader, you have to know how to motivate different people differently.
Correct.
I heard a pretty interesting quote that says that the same water that softens the potato hardens the egg. So with different characters within your business or on your team, they deserve a different motivation style. Yeah, I guess. So some people really, like, I think myself, I'm more hard-headed, and I take to like the, come on, man, like, you got to pick your shit up. You're slacking. I think I respond well to that, where I know some people who I made the mistake of trying to motivate them that way, and it just kind of curled them into their shell even more. When some people just want to hear that they're doing good and, stay focused, you're doing good, you got this. They want the more
what do you
uplifting.
call that? You used to have a phrase for that all the time, like a slap in the face or something. You always used to say it. And it was like those two specific ideas. It was like, do you like to be the guy that, like, the, come on, son, like, let's go, or like, you like a pat on the, I think that's what it was. Slap in the face or a pat on the back. Yeah.
What type of person are you? And you also have to identify that with your team as well. That's absolutely an important piece.
And it kind of reminds me, using the water reference. I mean, I'm sure you guys know who Bruce Lee is.
Yeah.
So growing up, I'm huge Bruce Lee fan. I'm watching his movies, trying to like teach myself karate and whatnot, and or karate,
Wing Chun.
So. Yeah, we've had a few people on the pod that have experienced the same shit.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite quotes is his quote about water.
Yeah.
You put it into a cup, it's a cup. You put it into a glass, it's a glass. You put it into a teapot, it's a teapot. It could flow, it could crash. Like it could destruction and floods, or it could be the most calming thing in the world.
Yeah.
And his philosophy, and I didn't realize that until like later on in life when I was in my 20s, and I actually started reading some of his philosophies, and I became an even bigger fan just because like his philosophy, I think, even outweighed his martial art prowess.
I agree.
And I was sitting there and I was like, that is so brilliant, because you have to be adaptable. You have to be able to mold yourself in these scenarios, because the more rigid you are, and I was rigid for a very long time, it just makes for an absolutely miserable life, and miserable for people around you.
Well, the human's biggest superpower is adaptability, correct?
Yeah. I mean, that's why we're here. That's why we're top of the food chain.
Yeah.
Some people don't realize how well the human, like, mind and body is able to adapt, though.
Yeah.
That's something I really, really find interesting, because I ran into this idea of what's called neuroplasticity.
It's awesome, right?
We can rewire and reprogram our minds and bodies.
Epigenetics.
That's a crazy, crazy thing to me, because I've seen studies where people were suffering from, this is what really interested me. People were suffering from like mental health diseases and stuff like that. And as they've began to embark on these specific techniques regarding these mental health issues, they've been able to compare brain scans and certain areas of the brain that were lighting up as they were suffering through these illnesses, and before and then after they started doing these techniques and stuff, the brain actually changed.
Absolutely.
Which is insane to think about, because, with that logic, you truly can become whatever it is that you want to become with enough stimulus.
And the thing is, it's just scary. And it's tough work.
It's hard work, and people, it's time too.
Exactly.
To put it in,
Everybody wants the pill.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And I didn't even realize it. Like, I saw the picture before, but I just posted a side by side of one of the kids who's been working with me for like the last 3.5 years.
Yeah.
I saw that.
And I didn't realize like what the difference was. And everything that I said in that post was completely true, because listen, I didn't lift the weights for him.
Yeah.
I didn't do any of the work. I guided him. I told him, the proper techniques. I came up with the program, so on and so forth. But he's the one who put in the work.
Yes.
And the brain, just like any muscle group, the more reps that you get, the more that you're going to be able to mold it into what you want. But the brain, unlike muscle groups, is way trickier. You can't see it.
Yes.
Yeah. It's more difficult for people to wrap their minds around,
Yeah.
you know, the progress. And this is why I say, like, not only with coaching, but like with friends and whatnot.
Yep.
In when you're on the field and in life, you see this. This is your 180.
Yeah.
You don't see any of this.
Yeah.
So as a coach, as a teammate, I can see your 360. In life, as a friend, I could see your 360. I might see things a little bit different than what you see.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why it's so important to surround yourself with, I don't want to say like-minded people. I want to say people with similar goals.
Mm.
And because it's one of those things that, like, it could make or break you. It could help slingshot you to the next level.
Yes.
Or you surround yourself with some people that are just like nitpicky and always negative and, you know, not even glass half full. My glass is empty. Like, you do that. And I don't care how ambitious you are. It gets in. Like, it gets in the ears. Your brain's going to process it.
Yes.
And, you know, you're going to be a shell of what you could be.
Yes.
It's very infectious.
Yes.
If that's a word. Is that the right word?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's
Absolutely.
very much so. So if you're around negative people, I mean, misery loves misery.
Yeah.
You know, so
That's like the classic quote that we always use. Like, you hang around 5 knuckleheads, who's going to be the 6th knucklehead?
Yeah.
You
Exactly.
hang around 5
millionaires.
go-getters.
5 go-getters. Yeah.
Who's going to be the 6th?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
like that idea.
Yeah, and listen, it's no like secret that when you see a group of people who have, you know, they're very well off or they're doing this business or that business, whatever, like that they're all hanging out.
Yeah.
And rarely are you going to see these, you know, like super high level people hanging out with, you know, some jabroni who's like, unless, you know, like high school friend, they keep him around for, you know, some laughs or whatever. But like professionally, they're never going to go to that guy.
It's no coincidence.
You know, even personally with, like, you know, some heavy things, they're never going to go to that guy.
Yeah. It's hard to let go of your chums though. You know, especially when you're on that path of wanting to better yourself and wanting more for yourself and for the people that you love.
Yeah.
You know, you have to let go of some people.
It is. And over the years, you know, that has happened either organically or inorganically. And it's just part of life. And sometimes, like, I came to the conclusion that it's not necessarily that, like, you have to go from, like, you know, friends to enemies.
Oh, yeah.
But sometimes people just, like, their act in that part of the play of your life is done. It ran its course. You have the experiences and you are who you are specifically because of that. Like, every moment to this moment, like, whatever we did, whatever small decision we made or big decision we made led us to, like, right now.
It was impactful. It was meaningful.
And so, like, some people, you just sit there and you're just like, okay, like, that's awesome, dude. Like, you know, you want to go out and you want to drink all day and all night and whatever. And, like, you're still fun and I'll hang out with you every once in a while. But, like, I got bigger things that I'm trying to do here. And, you know, you could either have my back and be part of that and, you know, like, be in my corner or not.
Yeah.
And either way, I'm good, dude.
Yeah, man.
And it takes a minute to get there, but, like, hanging yourself up on it is, I mean, that's an even heavier price.
Yeah. I don't think I've really luckily ever had a battle with that. Well, for me, what it was is I didn't really get into this lifestyle until right after I left high school. So it was pretty easy for me to, like, cut off some of, like, the dead weight.
Yeah.
Or in a way, like, that's kind of what I revolved myself around when I was younger. So it was very easy to step outside of that realm and then just get, like, a couple of tight-knit friends who were all working towards the same, not the same goal, but, like you said, like-minded goals.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did, and it worked out.
And it's huge. I mean, when you have it, it's kind of like, I'm sure you guys have watched Entourage.
I don't think so.
Describe it.
What's that about?
So it was an HBO series. Jeremy Piven's like the agent, and he's awesome. Like, his character's awesome. And it's about this actor who, him and his buddies move out to LA, and, like, he's the main guy and he has all of his friends who are, you know, like, they're doing all of their things, and, like, his brother's an actor. His one buddy is, like, kind of like his personal agent type deal, whatever. And they all just, like, live in a house together, and they're all, you know, trying to like make it in their own way, but also together. I think that you guys would love that series. Like,
kind
it's
of what we're doing.
Awesome. It's an awesome series.
That sounds cool because he said it. I mean, it's kind of what we're doing right now, but that's always been one of our goals, was to like create this really cool, like how I envision in my head, it'd be very hard to describe, but like I like to call it just like our go-getters compound, or the HQ, like just an area in which a bunch of like-minded individuals can come together as like a collective to work towards like their dream, whatever their goal is.
Well, it's funny you say that, because there was a time years ago, like pre-pandemic, I was looking at a space, like we were talking about real estate earlier. I was looking at a space, and I was like, you know what? I was like, this would be awesome as kind of like a think tank living community.
Yes.
Where it would be like a little higher price. It would be basically for professionals, but like within the building, you'd have like a common conference area in case somebody needed to use it.
Yeah.
Also, like ideally, you'd have, like a doctor, a lawyer.
Oh, that's cool.
A marketing guy, this, that, the other. So like now your neighbors, like you guys could kind of, it's right, like, Steve's right down the hall and he knows how to do digital marketing, and I'm starting this really company up and I need to figure that out. I like that thought for me. I was like that's a place that I would like to live.
It seems awesome. I mean, I would love to just be able to invest in like the betterment of individuals in that way. Like that would just be awesome to do. Yeah. Not even if like you plan to make any money out of it. Just I love hearing people that have like a goal or an idea or a vision and then actually like care so much about it that they actually do it and then it works. Yeah. I feel like nothing in the world is cooler than that. Just human innovation.
Absolutely.
So I would love to be able to contribute to that in that way. It'd be awesome. But that's like a severe long-term goal.
I saw this one idea this guy was talking about in a work that I was reading a little bit of in a book called Deep Work. And the guy was talking about, he was in architecture, building a building that has like multiple different chambers to it, I guess. And the beginning of the building was like this lobby with all of these different artworks and projects of people from this piece of architecture. And it's meant to kind of create this positive sort of peer pressure, like all these things that people created on these pieces of art, I guess. And then there's like another room where people can do research, and there's like libraries, books, resources, stuff like that. And then there's like these little incubators where people work on their individual projects, and then they kind of combine and work together. So it's like this piece of property that's designed for people to pump out like really, really innovative projects. Yeah. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. And especially when you have something like that, now you're giving people opportunity who like might not have the resources, might not have the ability to go spend thousands and thousands of dollars a month on a space or whatever. Yeah. But now you could come here for something that's, very reasonable.
That's cool.
And go and, do what you need to do. And who knows what comes out of a space like that.
I think Chris Jones's place is something like that, right?
Yeah. I mean, that one spot we went to by the square was something very similar too. That was a beautiful place.
The Think Center is something like that too.
Yeah. So I knew the guy who like kind of cultivated that a little bit when he was at the chamber. Awesome dude. I was actually just there in June. I did a talk. And the funny thing is, they asked me to talk, and I'm like, yeah, sure, that would be awesome. And I go in there, and the other two speakers are like one of my best friends in the world, his aunt, who I've known for a million years, and this other girl who went to my high school.
Oh wow!
And it was hysterical. And I was like, really?
Were you doing it in that like area where it's like the big like screen and they got all the chairs? I think that's such a nice little area.
It's a cool place.
It was when we were there. We were checking out just more like potential studio locations. That was forever ago. That
we do spaces for rent, I think.
Yeah.
I think so.
We were pondering that. So.
Yeah. And it was interesting, but it was a very nice place. I think something like that's very beneficial if you use it the right way. If you care to use it the right way.
Correct.
I don't even know, like, as me as an individual, that's just not necessarily who I am, but I think it's extremely beneficial. Like, I'm not like a social butterfly, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not. It's just not my avenue. So I don't know how much it would work for somebody like me, but I would love to take part in creating something like that for other individuals.
Absolutely. And I'm kind of the same way. Like I'm not necessarily shy at all. Like I have my extroverted side, I have my introverted side. But I'm also not the person who like, has the phone and this, that, and the other, which, is kind of detrimental for my business we're sitting there and like, trying to pump out content or whatever, I could be pumping out way more content than I am if I was just sitting there on the phone, not all day, every day, but for at least, a couple hours and, posing these things. But like, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around just because like, that's not me. Who am I? Like, the whole fluid, like, who the hell knows? But at the same time, right now it's just not something that I'm like.
I get that. I think there's a form of content creation for everybody that takes part in like any kind of business or something. Interestingly enough, the podcasting itself, it that came pretty naturally, but when it comes to like all the like the videos like you were referencing, you gotta take on your phone and stuff, none of that came quickly to us either. Like I remember like vividly, Xavier, can you throw me that little tripod thing under there? I remember vividly when we got this. This is like one of the first purchases we've ever made for the podcast. Just like a little tripod. You guys could see. It's one of the first things we ever bought for the podcast. I remember sitting in my backyard for like an hour straight, just putting my phone on this little thing, setting it up, and just sitting in a chair and endlessly just cutting it and just kept trying to like just talk, like just say simple words to the camera, like just to get used to it. When we first started, or when I got this for the first time, I remember how hard that was. I had to take like 20 videos before. I mean, I wouldn't even say until it didn't feel cringy anymore, because for a long time it will. And even doing this, like sitting down and like, it took a very long time to forget that the cameras are running, if that makes sense. But I don't think it's for everybody for that reason. It's very tricky, but I definitely think it takes some getting used to, just like anything else. Like you do public speaking, correct?
Yeah, when people ask me to, I don't really have an issue doing that.
That's like what I can't do. So like you and I are opposite in that way. Like I very easily now could talk to like a screen or a phone or a camera or any of those things, but like getting up in front of other people and like publicly speaking, that's something I can't really do.
Well, it was funny because when I walked in there and I saw my friend's aunt, and like we're all talking and whatever, and I just had a piece of paper front and back, and I was just gonna go there and read some things, like not like read off the paper, but they were just like notes and whatever. And she was sitting there, she's like, "You have notes?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "I don't have notes." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know, I'm sorry." And she's like, no, don't use your notes. I'm like, fine. So I go up there and I put the piece of paper on the podium, and I was like, I had a laundry list of things that I wanted to go over in like some detail, but Aunt Sandy told me I can't use my notes, so here we go.
Shout out Aunt Sandy.
Yeah, right. So I just went up there, and I basically had, I don't want to say like memorized, but like I knew what I wanted to talk about. So like I just went up there and just kind of talked, and I'll tell you right now, I have no idea where it came from. When I was in school, hated writing class, English, whatever. I don't know where. Probably like a little bit has to do with coaching, as far as like the public speaking part of it.
That makes sense.
But like the ability to write and create copy, like for our content and whatever else, it's just, I don't know where it came from. I was just like, okay, I now know how to use words that sound nice together.
So the reason we wanted to have you on the podcast was because we got a recommendation from Zach Kornfeld. Shout out Zach Kornfeld.
Good dude.
And we reached out to him one day and we said, "Hey Zach, do you have any podcast recommendations?" And he sent Enrico Bartolini's website and then your Instagram, and he's like,
he was the only guy too, right? I believe you're the only guy. He said, "Talk to this dude for 2 hours the other day. True hustler." And for those who don't know, I think Zach Kornfeld went away for 4 months last summer and came back with a couple $100,000.
He's there doing it now.
He's doing it
now.
Crazy.
Dude's a beast. I mean, they don't make too many like him. He's cut from a different cloth. True hustler, for real. So we took his word on that, and then we started to look into you a bit. And we're like, damn, like this dude's got a lot of shit going on. And then I kind of had this theory that I've been developing for a little while now, and I want to know what you think about it, because I classify you and I classify myself as the second. So my theory is that there's two types of ambitious people: the master and the jack of all trades. Okay? So the master dedicates his time to one thing and completely internalizes his craft. It becomes a part of his thought process, like a chess master can see all things through chess. Like Miyamoto Musashi, Isaac Newton, Mozart, Bobby Fischer, those type of guys. And then the jack of all trade doesn't necessarily have anything mastered, but he ping-pongs through different ideas and fields and has different expertise in like completely random things, right? So I was kind of conflicted with this idea at one point because I didn't know whether or not I should sacrifice everything and choose one thing, or I should just explore all my interests, which are like real estate, I like martial arts, I like podcasting, I like business, I like a ton of different stuff. When I looked into you, you do like 10 different things.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're running a furniture like business, and it's awesome.
Thank you.
You sell some really, really fascinating stuff. We saw that you buy and flip houses. You're coaching. We just learned that you're into like physics or some type of science.
Well, no, I have a degree in biophysics.
Biophysics.
And now I make furniture, so figure that one out.
Public speaker.
Yeah.
You got a lot of stuff going on. How do you juggle all that stuff?
Like,
how do you compartmentalize all that stuff in your head without getting burnt out or?
Well, so that's exactly what it is.
Gym?
Gym too, fitness.
It's compartmentalizing it. So you have to sit there. You have to be really good with scheduling.
Yeah.
You have to stick to it. You have to be able to say no sometimes, which is
it's hard.
Huge for me even now, because I like with all of that, I'm also the type of person that like my friends know that they could call me like day or night.
Yeah.
And 99% of the time I'm going to drop what I'm doing and go help them. But you know, sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. Sometimes you have to say no to ventures. I'm kind of like my father. Like I said before, you plant potatoes, you get potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested in a lot of things.
Yeah.
And the way that I look at it is both have their perks and both have their downsides.
Yeah.
We only go around once. Like,
got one life, man.
Exactly. And you know, I could be gone tomorrow, I could be gone in 100 years. Who knows?
Yeah.
Nobody knows. And so like I want to try a bunch of things. I want to do a bunch of things.
Yeah.
And so you talk about the master, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. One thing that they were just extremely passionate about days and days and days.
Sacrificed everything else.
Writing code,
reading
engineering books, so on and so forth. And it's awesome. And that's where they are. The hyper-focused, hyper-vigilant people tend to be the ones who get to that, like billionaire, some of the most influential people in the world status. That's awesome. For me, I decided a few years ago, I don't necessarily want that anymore. I want to be able to make a living, make enough money for me to be able to do whatever the hell it is I want to do, be my own boss, so I don't have to ask people for anything.
Hell yeah.
And is it always easy? No, it's rarely easy. People say, oh, go work for yourself because you'll have more freedom. Eventually, maybe, but they're just like today. I was up this morning. I was in the shop at 8 o'clock. And, I probably won't get home till after 10. Yeah. And sometimes that's just what it is.
Yeah.
But everything I did today, I wanted to do today.
Hell yeah.
It wasn't somebody breathing down my neck. Did you get that report done?
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. I got to do, finances, and I got to do reports, and I got to do all the, ticky-tack nonsense that nobody likes doing. But you figure it out. And the things that work or the things that you like the most will stick, and the ones that don't, they go away. So like the rubber business that I was telling you about, I did that for a handful of years.
Can you explain that a little bit?
So we figured out a way to take ground up recycled tire rubber and bond it with plastics to put it into to make plastic products out of it.
How'd that start?
There was a guy in Canada who came up with the initial kind of thought process on it. Yeah. And his partner knew my dad somehow. My dad knows. It's disgusting.
The legendary Bartolini.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so my dad came to me the one day. He was like, "Oh yeah, this guy that I know from Canada, he has this thing. The guy wants to sell the technology." And so my dad brought one of his buddies in who was the finance guy, and then my dad was the everything guy, and this other guy was the rubber guy. And so we bought what we thought was the technology off them. So here's a lesson. We bought the technology. The technology didn't work.
Wow.
But the theory was there. So technically, I could have probably just taken the theory and just ran with it on my own. we started doing this, and just by trial and error and, scientific method, things that I grew up with, we ended up figuring out ways, because everybody in the industry was thinking A, and I started thinking like Q. And when I figured that out, I was like, okay, I can make formulations this way instead of this way, and this way works, and this way doesn't. So like we had companies who were, multi-billion dollar companies who were trying to figure out like what we were doing, couldn't, and they would end up like kind of teaming up with us to like supply us with rubber, so that at least they'd be making some money somehow. We got to the point where there was little sidebar. We had a meeting at the DOC down in Washington D.C. And now I'm sitting across the table from the head of the DOC, the DOE, and the DOD. And it was this 25, 26-year-old kid that these like heads of state basically were sitting there listening to. And I'm talking, and I kind of paused at one minute, and I was like, is this real? This is wild. But so we got to a point where we were confident that, we could make these products and so on and so forth. There was a company who was interested in buying us out, which ultimately is what we wanted to do. Yeah. Because like the other three partners, they were older, and we're just like, okay, like, we'll have an exit, and that'll be that.
Better?
So we have this company who's interested. We go to make this big like production run, so that people could do the formulation down at their own facility. Mm-hmm. The first one, we sent one of our guys. The formulation was what it needed to be. Goes down there, it works. Now we have this even bigger production run. I have to run thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds. Like I said, the other partner didn't like that I kind of figured it out, but like this was like he thought that this was like his baby. Yeah. He there was a one of the products in the formulation that like we couldn't get, and we had to substitute. So he's like, "Oh yeah, like we'll just use this." And I'm like, "No." I'm like, "I have to do like testing on this and whatnot to make sure that it's gonna completely work." And no, we're just gonna do it. It'll be fine. It's the same thing. And I'm like, "It's not the same thing. That's not how like we do this. Millions of dollars on the line." Like, and I go, "And this one, like, you guys aren't sending anybody down there to do the run. So it's a new guy who doesn't know how to run this stuff." I'm like, this is all wrong. Yeah. For an hour before I ran this material, we were going back and forth, and then finally I just sat there and I just like looked at everybody. I'm like, you know what? You guys decide. Majority wins. And my dad's buddy and the other guy were like, okay, like we're just gonna do it. I'm like, bad idea. Lo and behold, goes down, doesn't work. They pull the offer, and we were just like, I was like, are you happy now? Because like your ego, like being upset that like I like figured this out was a little bit better than you at this, just cost us millions of dollars. Yeah. But all of that, just like I'm saying, like, was that 5 years wasted for me? No. Big letdown, huge letdown, because I'm sitting there and I'm like, yeah, like I could do this and I could do that and whatever else. But that entire experience helped me and continues to help me with what I do now.
Wow. We actually got to get into like your showroom and everything you guys do in terms of the furniture crafting and all that, because that was one of, I think, the most interesting things that I saw on your page that you did, because of like what it, again, I don't know, I'm very inexperienced, but like what I felt would go into that is mind-blowing. So is there any way you could walk us through that process? And honestly, if you are okay doing it, can you like walk us through from start to finish how at such a young age, I believe 16, you got into that business with your family, or was that just entrepreneur ventures in general?
So the shop that we have now, we had when I was growing up. Yeah. I was like 7 years old, cutting stuff out on the bandsaw. And, you know, employees would come back from lunch and my dad would bust them and be like, why am I paying you when my 7-year-old is like better at this than you are?
Yeah.
So I've been around it my whole life. And I'll preface this by saying, and this is what I tell everybody, I'm able to do this. I have the eye to do it and the capability of doing it. This is what my dad was put on earth to do. Like, I've been around it for, you know, pushing 4 decades.
Yeah.
And the stuff that he comes up with still impresses the living hell out of me.
Your dad's the master.
Oh, he's the master, but also the jack of all trades.
Oh,
He's
really?
the master with furniture, but the jack of all trades with everything else because he does a million things
That's interesting.
himself too.
That's interesting.
But so I'll give you the nickel story. He started in my grandparents' 2-car garage in Plains in 1975. And within a handful of years, he built up to 140 employees. He was number 1 in ready to assemble or knock down furniture in the country. Wow. He was all over Macy's and JCPenney's and Saks. On The Price is Right, his stuff was like the showcases that you could win.
Wow.
And so like he did that for a little while and, you know, became very well known, did very well for himself, sold all over the world. In the 90s, when like everything started going overseas, he decided to get out of it. He was getting a little burnt out, and it was just like, you know, whatever. So he did a handful of other things. He went to China like 24, 25 times with.
Wow.
He had a business with like one of his partners. I've been there a couple times too.
To China?
Yeah, kind of wild.
Wow. That's dope.
But so I like maybe 6 years ago, something like that, we started seeing some of his pieces pop up on these high-end auction websites.
Oh yeah, that's what you were talking about before.
And so like the one Shays Lounge that we would see multiple pop up, and people would like refabricate them with you know, fur or whatever else. He used to sell 300 of those a week for $69. We're seeing them sell on these websites for $7,000, $8,000, $9,000. So I looked at him and I'm like, you know, you're still alive, right? I'm like, somebody's, you know, making money off of our name, might as well be us. So we decided to get back into it, but instead of doing the mass produce and, you know, competing with the big box, you know, stores and retailers and whatnot, we're like, let's do high end, custom, you know, one of a kind limited edition pieces that people can't get. So like our customers are able to come into the showroom and be a part of the design process. Like, you know what you want to do with your space, you know what colors you want, so on and so forth. We're here to facilitate. You like that chair over there, but you want a different fabric on it with different color arms. Or you need a table this size by this size and you want it this color with this base. We'll do that for you. And like, I think that it's safe to say that nobody around here is doing that. And we've had people walk into our showroom from literally all over the country. We have a table going out to Park City, Utah next week.
Oh, that's awesome.
So like literally all over the country, and people are like, this stuff is wild. And you know, so right now the product is there. We're in the process of like continuing to get our name out there, because I'm getting real sick and tired of people walking in and being like, oh my God, like I just did all this stuff at my house. If I knew you were here, I would have used you. So we're like, we got to get in front of these people so that when these projects come up, we're top of mind. But that's, you know, that's basically what it is. And so it's essentially just him and I, and his girlfriend, you know, helps out too. But we, like, I'm in the showroom. He's at the shop. If I need him to come down for a consult, he'll come down. If he needs me to go down there because we have a big order or whatever else, I'll go down there. So like it kind of works. Also because if we were around each other all day every day, we'd probably murder each other. But
it's kind of cool that you guys have your own like little solo endeavor in the overarching business, though. I think that's pretty interesting. Well, hopefully this helps with like getting that word out.
That'd be awesome. And I think and you're right. And I think that it's nobody could do it all. I mean, eventually you're going to get to a point where you're going to need people who could, you know, go sell for you or do the administrative work or, you know, whatever the case may be. So like, like it works for us where, you know, we figured out a way and we're both efficient when we work. So, you know, we're able to, you know, make money and help these customers and clients at the same time.
It's a really cool industry to be in.
It is.
Making custom furniture. I bet you guys have a really cool living room. I bet
the entire house of my dad's house, like he started doing it in maybe late 90s, like early 2000s, and like redid the entire thing. The first dining table that we did, 14-foot long, wide plank pine. It's like 4 pieces of like, it was like 16-inch planks of pine, and we built that, put that in the dining room, and it still wasn't enough to have all of our family over for, you know, like Christmas.
That's dope.
Yeah.
When we blow this thing up, we're gonna order a custom GG table.
Yeah. No, actually, I'm gonna.
You got it. Give us the logo. We'll throw it in some epoxy right in the center.
Dude,
of the
that's
table.
awesome. So like, that's exactly what I was just about to show you. So
I'm gonna
like,
go pee real quick.
did you ever hear of these guys? Full Send.
Yeah.
So they did this one thing that I seen forever ago, and I literally seen this photo right when we started the podcast. And it was actually, funnily enough, when we were in your shop, I showed him this image because, like, I always thought, like, for the podcast, I wanted something exactly like this one day. So I'm going to show you exactly what that. I'll put it on the screen, too, because can you write down the time? It was this. Hold on. Let's see here. Why is it not working? No. What's going on? My phone's bugging. Full Send table. Let's try this one more time. It's awesome though, man. I love this. If you guys, I'd imagine you probably would be able to do something like this. But I think it's so badass. Yeah, this thing right here. I don't know why my phone's going crazy. So here, you can just get a little idea of what I'm referring to. It's like the wood, and then they pour like that. You said it's the epoxy, like the resin pour, right?
Yeah, we could do that all day, every day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love the way that table looks.
Yeah,
I was just telling him about that. How I it's kind of ironic. I literally like that table. You know what table I'm talking about? That Full Send one.
Dude, you could do it.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And with that, like, do you guys have certain colors? Like, are you guys green or?
We're
like,
orange and blue.
Yeah.
That's our colorway.
Syracuse.
Yeah.
So I mean, we'd be able, like, that is just a red pigment at the bottom.
Yeah.
Or it could be full throughout, depending on what you wanted to do with it. But yeah, you could do it with orange pigment, blue pigment.
So is that how it is? It's like that on the bottom, and then it's like clear up top, but it just shines through.
Well,
is
so
that like how that works?
There's 2 ways of doing it. With something like that, you typically can't pour all at once.
Yeah.
You have to do it in layers. So some of them you could, like, your first pour will have the pigment mixed in it, and then all of your other ones will be clear above it. So like the one, I don't know if you saw it, but the one, we have a small like desk or like small dining table, and then up against the wall we have the large dining table version of it with the wood in it, like completely flooded by the epoxy. So that has the pigment on the bottom, and then it's layers of clear above it. So you could do that, or you could put the pigment in every layer, and then you just have that like opaque pigment throughout the whole thing. You won't have any depth to it, but you know you'll have the color the whole way.
That's one thing. Like I love like aesthetic. Like I love that vibe, and I feel like I love this table. This table has been with us through everything. This is like actually the first thing we ever put in the studio was this table. It was just you bought it with the house.
Oh
right?
no, yeah, this came in the house. So when I moved in, this was just hanging out in here.
Nice.
So like we're gonna have to keep this one around for something. I'm too emotionally attached to this table, but like a table like that, oh my god, I love the idea of doing something like that. Table is so badass.
Well, I mean,
you know what I think would be cool, bro? You ever see the one in Rogan's comedy club?
The little snake John.
There's a snake in it.
I was gonna look that up. I'm gonna show you that one too.
And you know what would be cool? Imagine one with like a sword in the middle or some shit.
Yeah,
it's so cool.
So I mean, we could put anything. We could put anything in the epoxy. I mean, you might even be able to take this table and like route out a little river in it.
Yeah.
And then throw the stuff in there.
It's pretty like this table is pretty thin and cheap. We'll get there. Hold on, I want to see. They don't have
in due time.
They don't have like a clear enough image of it, at least to my knowledge, that I could find. But just so you get like a little idea, they have like that's like just a weird little screenshot of it. They have like a little snake swimming like through the wood. Like it's pretty crazy.
Oh yeah.
Let's put a picture right here.
Yeah, I will. That's a pretty terrible picture, so I'll see if I can find a better one. But that's like the little snake going through the I thought it was a dragon at first, but it's like the snake going
really
like
cool.
peeking and swimming through the wood. I think that's awesome. But I love that kind of stuff. Like
Absolutely.
That's one thing, like hopefully like as the funds get higher for this pod, one thing he and I really care about is like creating like a cool aesthetic in here and like
cool environment. Yeah,
Definitely.
so. Well, especially like when we upgrade and get a bigger and better studio too, it'd just be awesome. Like I love that stuff. I can get into that all day.
Yeah, that's a really creative endeavor though, what you guys do over at that shop.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny because we opened in the middle of the pandemic.
Really?
We opened in June of 21. That showroom we opened.
How long ago did we go there? I felt like so much longer than that.
No, it was probably around that time or a little bit after that, I'd say.
Yeah, and we it was like decently serendipitous just because people, you know, they were in their house for the most part.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people who were still making money. They were working from home, but like, you know, they couldn't do anything. They couldn't travel. They couldn't. And so a lot of people were redoing their houses. Yeah. Which is why, you know, that whole crisis happened. People couldn't get 2x4s and whatever else. So, you know, people started coming to us and they were like, yeah, like I'm sick and tired of looking at the same four walls. Yeah. I want to do something and I want to do something nice. Yeah. You know, and the crazy thing about what we do is not only is everything American made, everything is pretty much Pennsylvania sourced and made.
That's awesome.
That is really cool.
Yeah, because we do a lot with the Amish and Mennonite down in Lancaster. My dad's been going down there for 35 years, so like we get our wood down there and our bases. There's a Mennonite sheet metal company that laser cuts, and we we'll get some of our bases cut down there, or, you know, whatever else. So pretty much everything that we do, like it's all homegrown. And,
that's really cool.
People like the story.
People
and also,
love that.
And also people like the story, especially when you get into a certain bracket. People will sit there and like they just want something that when you're walking into their house, you have something that like they're like, I have something my friends don't. Yeah. And that's and then they could sit there and be like, I helped design this. Like, see, this was my idea.
People love one-of-one things.
Bartolini original. Bartolini original. Yeah.
Are you familiar with Jocko Willing?
No.
Well, he is a retired Navy SEAL. He's a pretty big guy in terms of like what would you say? Podcasting, motivation, all those kinds of things. He has a company called Origin where they do virtually the same thing. They're one of I don't remember the number exactly how they described it, but they're one of America's only like 100% made. Everything that they make comes and it is made from America and sold here in America.
They do boots and gis, right?
Yeah, boots, gis. They have some other stuff too, like I believe like hunting stuff, or maybe I'm thinking of Cam Hanes. I don't know, but I know that they said that was one of their most successful things that they did in their business was make it known to everybody that, like I said, everything that they were creating, crafting, and selling was American-made, sourced directly either from where they were stationed or nearby, and people love that about their company.
Yeah, and ultimately that is a massive selling point, and you know, on top of it, and I've seen both the good and the bad of doing business in a place like China. So you know, you could go there, and we've had some quality products made like back, you know, a million years ago when my dad was doing all that stuff. But, you know, you could go there, you could go to a company and be like, I want this bottle made. Yeah. Be like, okay, $10. Be like, okay, I want it made for $5. And they'll say, okay. And you'll get it for $5 and it won't be worth $5, you know? So they'll do it. And I think that's part of, you know, like, what like that's the flip side that like when somebody gets that poorly made product, and regardless of where it's from, you know, that kind of stigma comes along with it and whatnot. And for us, we want to make sure that customer service is huge. Yeah. Quality of the product is
probably number one for you guys.
I mean, it has to be. Yeah. Again, these things that he was making for, you know, pennies basically, or selling for thousands of dollars. Yeah. Never meant to. Never meant to. He was just so like good and on top of quality. Yeah. He had less than 0.5% returns. Stores were coming to him being like, can you like make this product or make that product? And he's like, why? That's not what I do. He's like, because we don't get any returns to the store from your products. And so, you know, that was always, you know, always a thing. And take a little bit longer and just do it right.
Yes.
You know, like that's big, and people appreciate it.
Yeah, and I mean, and for that you get to like control your price point as well. You're not necessarily making a cheap product that needs to be sold cheaply. I mean, you guys kind of deem the value on what you're creating because you know what goes into it.
Correct.
That makes sense.
And ultimately we could do whatever you need us to do. It's just are you willing to pay what it's going to cost to, you know, make that thing happen? And we want to be reasonable with a lot of the things that we do, but we will have people come in with like outlandish things and we'll do it for them. But like, you know, the more work that we have to put in, obviously the higher price the item is going to be.
Yeah.
What do you think is the most outlandish project that you guys ever made?
That's crazy. I was going to ask the very same thing.
What's the craziest piece of furniture that you guys have ever
just
created?
A couple of craziest things that come to mind.
So not necessarily the craziest, but right now we have a 17.5-foot black walnut table in the showroom listed for $45,000.
Oh my God. Now what, like, I don't want to, again, because I'm inexperienced with this stuff, what makes that worth that amount of money? Like, is it something about the wood? Is it how it's crafted? Is there something that goes into it that I don't understand?
The funny thing is, like, there were a couple people out in California that we were talking to who were looking at that table.
Yeah.
And when we told them that, like, they live in Huntington Beach, more money than God.
Yeah.
They were like, wait, that's all it is? And I was like,
Whoa.
by all means, you want to give me more money, like I'll take more money.
Yeah, we accept tips.
Exactly, like I'm game. And then they were sitting there and we were looking at like options to send it out to them. And they were assuming that shipping was going to double it. So it was going to be $90,000. But again, the customer service that we do found shipping into their house. And I was actually going to fly out to like make sure that everything was done right. Because if you're spending that type of money, like, I'll do that. We found it for like less than $10,000 to go out there, and they were floored. Yeah. They ended up moving, and then like the wife like got something else or whatever. But what makes it that is that piece, like you don't come across them. Yeah. That we haven't seen a piece like that since we got that piece.
And why is it? Is it like the rarity of the wood? Is it like what actually goes in making the final product?
Well, to have a piece that's that big, in that good a condition, where like, you know, we don't have to split it and put a river down it or, you know, like do anything like that. Yeah. It's rare to basically get a log that like you could get that out of. So like that's basically what it comes down to is the rarity of the wood that's coming in that is then creating these slabs.
Go ahead.
What's the most expensive piece you guys ever sold?
Well, that one when it goes.
I mean, fuck, that's crazy.
$45,000 for a table.
Yeah.
I was gonna say though, it's similar to like what we were talking to about with Devin Diamond about. It's kind of like similar to the whole diamond industry. Yeah. Like it all grows naturally, but it's not grown the same, if that makes sense. I mean, some diamonds are terrible compared to some of the highest grade diamonds that grow naturally in the world. That's crazy though. Yeah. Do you have a number? Like, do you have one of those?
We did a table for like mid-10s.
Oh my God!
But that was
it's a car.
Yeah,
it's a house.
Yeah,
if you
it's a down payment.
Yeah,
nice house.
Yeah. So you got to run into some pretty interesting cats, like.
Oh yeah, and I've gotten really good at. I treat everybody with respect. Everybody who comes through, whether you know they're able to afford or appreciate or whatever our products. Yeah. I'll educate people because like even if they can't, maybe they know somebody who can. Yeah. Or just the fact of just being a human being. Yeah. Like like that guy treated me well. He talked to me like a real person. He wasn't just like like get out of here. But there are some people who come in who are like tend to be difficult to work with, and not necessarily because like they want to be difficult, but either they can't make a decision, or there's too many decisions, or they just like want something like so like very very specific. And, like we try to give them as much as we could, and sometimes we just have to sit there and we're just like, all right, like this just has to be what it's going to be. Like we're wasting too much time on this. Yeah. Well, and it always ends up being, like they're always floored by it anyway. Yeah. So it's just like,
Well, I'm sure they don't understand at all what goes into what you guys do. Similar to because I'm very interested in those kind of endeavors, like craftsmanship. Like I love that shit, but even I don't understand what goes into that at all. So I can only imagine what some of your clients that come in to purchase something when they want it a specific way and have no idea what the process is actually like. That could probably get pretty annoying because they just don't understand it.
Well, and it's not necessarily annoying because things are only as annoying as you're going to allow.
Yeah.
But there are people who come in and they basically have the notion. You're like, oh yeah, you just cut a slab of wood and throw a few legs on it. I'm like, yep, that's what we do.
That's what we do. Keep it simple.
There is nothing else that goes into it.
One thing.
I would imagine the expertise that goes into like selecting the perfect piece of wood and then cutting it and then knowing exactly. I mean, I'm sure there's some mathematics involved somewhere. Mm-hmm. There's probably a lot. What goes into making a piece like that? Like, what's your process like for you guys if you're able to disclose? It's like the secret formula, but
so no, it's kind of funny because my dad's still old school. Like, he's 73 years old. Yeah. He's still cruising and he's not stopping anytime soon. And so people will sit there and they'll be like, oh, like can you do a drawing for us, like a CAD drawing or whatever? I'm like, no, we don't do that. My dad will pull out a pen and a piece of paper and like draw something, fella. And I'll be like this, and they're like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for. So a lot of times with the designs that we make, like my dad will sit there and he will do a drawing to scale of like a part that we need. Yeah. And then he'll like give it to like if we're not making that specific part, because we do have people who will like do certain operations all day every day, and it's just more cost effective for us to be like, here, go make us 20 of these or whatever it is. Then it all comes back to us, and we have to do all of the finishing, any more design work that goes along with it, so on and so forth. But so he'll still do these drawings to scale and give them to some of these people, and I'm like, it sounds so archaic, but it helps out tremendously with some of these people who are fabricating these things. Like he'll do something like out of cardboard. Yeah, like he'll cut this big thing out of cardboard and just give it to them, and it helps. Like it helps a bunch.
Now, when he's doing the actual crafting, are you there with him? Is he doing it by himself?
Occasionally, it depends. Like if I'm down there, then like I've been a part of it, or he'll call me and be like, hey, like what do you think about this, that, or the other? I was watching one of the YouTube videos of that guy that I was telling you about with the podcast, and he and his girlfriend were like in they were like in an Airbnb or something like that, like a really nice Airbnb, and there was a table that just kind of like glanced through the frame. And I like went back to it and I was looking at it, and not like the base itself, but it jogged a design in my memory. So like I paused the thing, I went down, I like drew like what I thought the design for the base, like my base, what it would be. I took a picture of it and I sent it to my dad. He calls me and goes, what's that? And I go a base. And he goes, for who? And I go, just thought of it. Something we could probably, fabricate and, like put this table on it or that or whatever. He's like, okay.
How do you get better at that craft without it doesn't appear to me that there would be too much online that would help you get better at something like that.
Just like most other things, experience.
Just gotta do it, right?
Yeah. I mean, believe me, you'll go cut a few things wrong. Yeah. Only so many times before you're like, all right, now I'm going to triple and quadruple check and make sure that this is right. Or, and I still do this to an extent because I'm not at the level that he is when it comes to this. I will, like, if I'm designing something, he might sit there and be like, okay, we could do that. Or he'll be like, oh, but like you forgot about this aspect. And I'm like, didn't even think about it. Didn't even think that would be a thing. But that's 50 years of doing this on his part versus like significantly less on mine.
So like if say like for example right now I put an order in with you guys, like I wanted so and so. What's the turnaround time on like virtually I guess like the average piece you guys make? Like how much work and how much time goes into something like that?
So it depends on what the piece is. Yeah. If it's say it's one of the lounge chairs that we have and somebody just wants a different fabric on it, different color arms, whatever, we have that stuff in stock. So that'll be a significantly less timeline. If like I'm working on a project for this guy down near Philly, and he wants like these custom tops done.
Yeah.
And that, like, we have to go and actually like find what we want for him specifically and whatever. So that takes a little bit more time.
Yeah.
And sometimes we get lucky and, we'll walk into one of our suppliers and we're like, that's perfect.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to tell them, and, it might be a few weeks or a month later and they're like, okay, like I got something that we think will work for this project. So it depends. I usually tell people, like, for the things that like we would have in stock, they have to go into the queue with whatever else we have going at the time. But I usually tell them like 8 to 12 weeks, and it's usually never that. But I'm big in all business.
Yeah.
I'm big on under promising and over delivering.
I like
because
that.
so many people go the opposite way.
Yes.
And it's just like, oh yeah, like I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And 3 weeks goes by and it's like 2 weeks ago, this was supposed to be done. Like, oh man, but like I stubbed
then
my
the excuses
toe
come
and I was in the hospital. They thought I was going to, like get gangrene. And I'm like, dude, none of this happened.
Yeah.
Like, but you learn. You learn about those people.
So growing up, following your dad, you're working and making all these artistic pieces of furniture. What made you decide to take your own path and go and carve your own route and experiment with some other things like real estate, like coaching, owning your own gym? I think you have some certificates in nutrition and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Because you have to. I mean, I know I've seen time and time again people who are like forced by their parents, especially if it's like, a father-son dynamic or whatever. The father kind of wants to keep, control over their son. They want to keep, especially a certain generation, because they want everything to be exactly how, they want it. And, it's really all they know. So could you fault them? I mean, yes and no.
Yeah.
But for me, I was just like I give him a ton of credit because stuff that he made me do growing up that I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go change my brakes. Like, let's just bring this to somebody. I don't want to. But like now I know how to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people my age don't. They have no idea. And so like that's the cool part of it. But I also have my own interests. And so, I purposely make the time to be able to do all of these things because it's what I want to do. And I go and I just continue to go back to the notion. And as you get older, like you go through your different phases and your different thought processes and whatever else. And you're going to sit there and you're going to be like, what do I want out of this life? And my biggest thing is I do not want to like get to my deathbed and being like, should have done that.
Yes.
And there are a lot of things. I don't really like to call them regrets because like you learn from them. But there are a lot of things where it's like, probably should have asked that girl out.
Yeah.
Probably should have tried this venture. Probably should have done this. Probably should have done that. But you could either be really upset that like you didn't do that thing, which you have no control over.
Yeah.
Because I don't know anybody who knows Doc from Back to the Future. Like we can't do it.
Yeah.
But what you could make sure is that like it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
So like, and it's kind of going back to what you were talking about, like with the brain, like, and it's what I say to my soccer players. I'm like, guys, especially on the practice field, I want you to make mistakes.
Yeah.
I want you to make every mistake you could possibly make. Just learn from them so you don't make them over and over and over again. I could handle you making a mistake. And now like I could handle, for the most part, I'm still a perfectionist, still the hardest person on myself, like out of anybody. But like, are you learning from that? And are you able to maneuver and get better through that learning process?
Yeah.
If you're not, like, that to me is worse than death.
Yeah. It's a good
Staying
approach
stagnant.
to treat an L like a lesson rather than a loss.
Has to.
And embrace mistakes as like opportunities to learn things and then continue to innovate on whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
What got you into fitness and what made you want to have your own gym and become a personal trainer?
So like I said, I after college, I moved out to Hoboken. We moved out there in June of '08, and stock market crashed in September. So my cousins and I still call it the most expensive vacation we've ever been on. we have this like brand new apartment.
Yeah.
Basically, none of us have jobs. It's like, it was wild. But so through that whole thing, trying to like find out jobs, figure out what I wanted to do, I was like, well, maybe I could go and like be a personal trainer somewhere. And one of my best friends in the world is a personal trainer, like straight out of college, and like continued to work for himself. Now he has this awesome gym in Center City, Philly.
Oh, nice.
And and so I didn't do it back then, even though I probably should have, but he was a big influence on me of me being like, okay, like maybe I'll just go get my CSCS, Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist, and we'll see what happens. And so I did it, and I started dabbling in it. First guy that I ever coached, he was late 50s. He's definitely out of shape, had a lot of balance issues, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I ended up working with him for, I think it was maybe like 2 months. And the one day I was leaving his house, I had to be up every day at 5 a.m. to be up in Bear Creek, because we had to train at his house so that he could just then like shower and go to work.
Yeah.
So we would go up there, we would train, and the one day he sits there and he goes to pay me, and he gave me like 20 extra bucks. And I'm like, no, like this is too much. And he goes, no. He goes, that's what you're getting from now on. And I go, what? And he goes, well, I did a little market research. He goes, and you are wildly undervaluing yourself, especially for the fact that like you're the best trainer that I've had. And he told a story. He goes, I was just golfing with my son, and normally he was like, wobbly on the ball and so on and so forth. And I guess he was, hitting the piss out of the ball, and
nice.
he was very stable. And his son, after the like third or fourth hole, was like, who are you and what'd you do with my dad? Because he like wasn't used to it. He was used to, like dad being out there being wobbly. So that was like kind of cool. And I was like, well, maybe there's something to this. And then I was just like, I want to work with athletes.
That's
like,
dope.
That's it's more fun for me.
Yeah.
It's more fun for them because, like I could do small groups, and, it's not necessarily about like being a profession, because I do a million other things.
Is this pre-becoming a soccer coach?
No.
Okay.
I started coaching soccer in 2009.
Oh.
I don't think that I started training until 15, 16, something like that.
What do you enjoy more?
So I would do like training with my soccer team, like in preseason, just like from stuff that I knew even before I got certified.
Yeah.
What I like doing more, they're equal. Like the training is year round, and that's kind of fun, and like switch it up and so on and so forth. Soccer, the guy that I coached with at Dallas, who was there for 22 years, I was there for 12.
Yeah.
We brought back online a club, a soccer club, and immediately became like the biggest club in the area. Because one of the other coaches closed his club, and we knew basically everybody, so they all just came over to us. Doing soccer year round, especially like being on the board and whatnot, so I had those responsibilities. It was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot, especially because I want to deal with high school kids. They get to 15, 16 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Girls, parties.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm showing up to practice at 8:30 at night after I just, like, worked all day. 6 kids. And I was just like, I'm like, what am I supposed to do with 6 kids?
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
So I was just like, whatever. So, like, I like the high school aspect of it. Even when I was coaching college, I was coaching at Penn State.
Yeah.
And so, like, I would go from Dallas right over to Penn State, like practice to practice. Or it would be funny, like I would have a Penn State game and then go to Dallas for like a game that night or whatever. So like I was constantly running around. But it was nice because like by the end of the season, you're like, okay, now like I've basically like had my fill for that season. You get time to miss it, and then you're rejuvenated by the time summer comes around. You're like, all right, like let's get going again. Like let's go after that district title.
Did you play when you were younger?
I've been playing since I was 4.
Really?
Yeah.
Soccer was one of the sports that I never got into.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't like organize sports. I didn't like really play anything besides football, but I had an interest in most sports, but not soccer. Soccer never really crossed my mind. I went to a lot of soccer games though when I was younger. I like watching soccer.
I played pretty much every sport. I never played like basketball in a league or in an organization. I tried to get lacrosse started my senior year of high school, and like they were like, okay, like go get a petition, thinking that I wasn't going to do it.
Yeah. Got
a petition, and then they were like, well, no, we can't do it. SEM's the only school that has it, and they travel to New York and New Jersey and Maryland and wherever else. And I'm like, why'd you make me do this? You know, and then like a few years later, they start everything. They got lacrosse clubs, and then they became school things. But soccer, football, baseball, track, like everything.
That is interesting about lacrosse. Why did it take so long for lacrosse to become popularized? I remember lacrosse only became an organized sport at my school my senior year.
Because this area, we're like pretty much across the board, we're like, 5 years behind the times.
Yeah.
Like even if you go and listen to the radio, there are songs that they're playing. They're like, yeah, now this new beat coming out. It's like 2018.
I can't stand that radio.
We are behind in a lot of ways, especially athletically.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm gonna pee quick.
I'll tell you right now. Definitely athletically. So like I went to Wyoming area. And like they just won states. In 2019, which was like in football. Which was awesome. And then the following year, the baseball team went to the state title and ended up losing. But like outside of that, I don't think you'll ever see I don't want to say ever because I don't like to speak in absolutes. It's going to be really tough to see like a soccer state title come out of this area for at least boys. Girls occasionally have a chance, but like for boys, it's tough. Yeah. You go an hour in any direction, and they have
photographer.
Yeah. You go an hour in any direction, and it's just like the level, because there will be coaches who will have these clubs, and they're doing it the right way. They're doing the club the right way, and they'll have kids who like play together in these clubs. So like then when they go to these high schools, like these kids who have already played with each other for X amount of years, and they know each other and they're familiar with each other and they're playing the right way and so on and so forth. So like, you get out of this area, you go play at Lewisburg. Yeah. Who's fed from like North Union, they're amazing. Lower Dauphin, down near Harrisburg, unreal every year. It's just like I think that I don't know if they win 2 or 3 like back-to-back state titles a few years ago. But I remember watching a game. It was them in Northwestern Lehigh from like the Allentown area. Yeah. And Northwestern Lehigh was 25-0. Lower Dauphin had a couple losses because they were missing kids like early in the season or whatever from injury or whatever. And they made them look like an intramural team. Like they made this undefeated team look like an intramural. Like they couldn't touch them. I was like, this is wild.
I don't think it's just soccer though. Like I think that's also true for a plethora of things in this area, but I'm actually not sure why. I don't know why we seem to be behind athletically, and maybe even in other ways as well, like in terms of culture. I feel like maybe we're playing catch up when it comes to culture here in a lot of ways.
I think like just one thing begets another thing. Yeah. So it's just kind of like, and I hated this when I was coaching, but like, or when I was teaching. So like I was at Wyoming area when they were going on that state run. Yeah. And like there would be kids who just like in conversation, whether they're athletes or not, like a big thing was like, oh yeah, like that dude's a try hard, and I'm like, oh, what does that mean? Oh, you mean like he's trying to be better? Like
you've heard somebody say that before?
I've heard it.
Oh,
too.
I've heard
that's
I've heard students and players, like even players that I've had like say that, and I'm like, that's not a negative thing. Yeah. So okay, so yeah, this kid is trying. Say you're naturally gifted and you're better than that kid. Awesome. If you tried, like you're still a shell of who you could be, because if you tried, now you're like exponentially better. So like don't knock him because like he's trying and like you still might be a little bit better or whatever, because I'm gonna tell you right now, he's got the right mindset.
Yeah.
Because when he's out there, you know, like working or doing whatever, like he's gonna be successful because he's a try hard.
That's the only thing you can control in the athletic realm and
academically as well.
Pretty
really
much anything.
Is how hard you work.
No, that term might be the dumbest thing.
Try hard?
It's so stupid.
It was probably somebody who was really insecure probably came up with that.
Yeah, gamer.
Oh, definitely.
That's that gamer. That's the classic Call of Duty phrase. You're a tryhard. Xavier, you know about that.
Yeah.
Come on now. That's that gamer mentality.
Yeah. And you know what? All it is it's an excuse.
Yes.
It's just like the opposite, where I've had players we've walked off the field after like a loss that like probably shouldn't have lost, and a player would be like, "Yeah, coach, but like I didn't really try all that hard."
Yeah.
It is an
And
excuse.
I'm like, first of all, like, do you know who you're talking to? Because it's probably the last thing you should be saying to your coach.
Yeah.
Second of all, it's an excuse.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't try hard, like, get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
And if you did try hard and you're just using it as an excuse, like, you ultimately know. When you go put your head on your pillow tonight, like, you know what the truth is. It's not gonna make a difference to me.
Yeah.
Like, it's gonna eat at you. Like, your stuff is gonna eat at you.
Yeah.
You know, it's like Jay-Z's one line, "What you eat don't make me shit."
Yeah.
You know?
It's an interesting excuse though, because like if you say, "Well, I didn't try that hard," it kind of allows you to be comfortable with the fact that you failed, right?
Correct.
Self-sabotage. That's
Yeah.
that John Jones thing.
Like if I didn't try that hard and I lost, well, if I tried hard, I would have won.
I have something to blame it on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you know like what level you put in.
Yeah.
And still, even if you didn't and you lost, it's gonna eat at you.
Yeah.
It's gonna eat, because eventually you're gonna sit there and you're like, why didn't I?
Yeah.
And I don't know. That was just never me.
I want to backtrack a little bit because I wasn't here for that part of the conversation. I really don't think we're behind in terms of athleticism. I actually think the opposite. I think
Not athleticism, I think.
what?
I don't think we were saying that we're behind in terms of our athleticism. I think we have the athletes
Yes.
to run up against
So
anybody.
yeah, maybe I just missed that part,
Yeah.
but that's exactly what I was going to say. I don't think it's the athleticism at all. I've known, and you know as well as I do, coming from a school like Myers, like we've had some of the best talent in the area. I think where we really lacked, or where we're 5 years behind, is mentality-wise. And I think our area has always had that problem. I mean, we classically or infamously were known as like the team that was really good, but got in our heads and gave up very easily. When the going got tough, they gave up. That's what our area was known for.
We fought with each other.
Yeah, fighting, pointing fingers, pointing the blame, and quitting before it's over.
And I think you're spot on with that. It's not a physical thing; it's a mental thing.
Yes.
And I would tell my players at Dallas, because I remember it was my junior year.
Yeah.
The Dallas team went to the state semifinals, the Dallas boys soccer team, and they were studs.
Yeah.
Wall-to-wall studs, like kids that I played with growing up and like travel and whatnot, absolute studs. And I would tell my like players in real time, I'm like, if I went and pulled those guys off the sidelines right now, they would be better than you. They would probably beat you. Like even being out, even being like out of shape or whatever, but possibly out of shape. I'm like, they'd probably beat you guys 10-0. And they're like, never, that would never happen, whatever. Until we would go up to the Dome, and the one team in the men's open up there at one point was like a lot of these players.
Yeah.
And they would go play like our club team, which was even better than any high school team individually around here. And because we had all the best players, and they would go up there, and a bunch of these old heads are just sitting there like running, like smacking the hell out of them. And I'm like, yeah, dude. I go, and can you imagine now, like if they were in the shape that you guys were in?
Yeah.
Like, but this is what I'm saying. And back then, it was tougher.
Yeah.
You know, I don't advocate for like bullying or, you know, like any type of those pressures, and I never did.
Yeah.
But it was just a tougher mentality. Like they didn't let you get away with, you know, like being quote unquote weak-minded on the field. Like you had to figure it out or get out of my way.
Yeah.
Like that's all it was. And now it's just more so like, okay, well, how do we make it okay for you?
Yeah.
You know,
that might be what's happening in the world right now as well.
Yeah.
It might be kind of a direct correlation to a rise in sensitivity.
Yeah. A softening
Absolutely.
of the world, it seems.
One thing and don't get me wrong, there's still, not to cut you off, but there's still plenty of people out there who still have that mentality. No, if you're in my way, I'm going to run you over. Yeah. In sports, in business, whatever.
I think that's why
those are the ones that tend to be, you know, the most successful.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think that's why that form of content, I guess you could say, is very popular now, is because people know that in society we lack that currently. Like the hard people, like the guys that tell you like what you need to be doing, and a lot of people don't like that. Well,
and ultimately that's kind of how I coach.
Yeah.
Like just today I went a little bonkers on them because we were doing a relatively simple drill. Yeah. And just the cues, like it wasn't even necessarily the physical aspect of it. It was they were just making these mental mistakes. Yeah. That I'm like, guys, it has nothing to do with anything other than the fact that you're not concentrating. Like you're thinking about whatever else. You're gonna go get Hillside after this or whatever you're thinking about, but like you're not concentrating and you're messing up my drill. Yeah. And if you don't do it here, how can I trust you to do it on the field in the game? You know? And that's like when I came in last year, I just kind of went over the top, like balls to the wall. No, like this is like with like the confidence thing, like because I saw it the first day I stepped on the field. I asked the assistant coach, who was one of my former players at Dallas, and he was the assistant coach at Lehman before I got there. Yeah, I was like, we have a ton of talent here. Like what's going on? And he's like, you know, we just have to put it together. Yeah. And so I just, you know, came up with this whole thing. I was like, all right, they have to follow me. They have to follow this. It's kind of like shoot for the stars, maybe get to the moon. That's how like confident I was being for them. Yeah. And they turned it around. They had an amazing season last year. It didn't end the way we wanted to, but it was something to build off of for this year.
How do you build confidence in your team?
It's brick by brick, and it's exactly what we were talking about before, where you have to figure out what makes each individual player tick. So like again today there was a kid who I was, you know, like getting on, and I'm like, dude, you're messing up. Why are you messing up? Like your thought process is not there. What are you doing? And then at the end of practice, I went over and I was talking to him, and I did like the kind of mama bear thing. Yeah. Where I was like, listen, this is like, you're asking me these questions, and this is exactly what I'm telling you to do. I tell them all the time. They're probably sick of hearing me in general, but I'm like, I'm giving you the answers to the math test. You just have to write down the answers. Yeah. Like, I can't write them down for you. And so I told him, I'm like, so this is what was going on. Yeah, I understand that. I understand that. Okay, like this is what you need to do. And if you do this, you are a true asset to this team. And if you don't do this, I can't, you know, be confident in you. Your teammates can't be confident in you. And like, that's a shame because you have the talent to do it. Yeah. So it's kind of one of those things, like knowing when to kick them in the ass. Yeah. And knowing when to sit there and break it down and be like, listen, like, I'm not your enemy, but I'm also not going to let you slide on these things because I know what it takes to win. Yeah.
That's a very hard thing to balance.
Extremely.
Do you think that your current understanding would have been an asset to you in dealing with your former business partner's ego when you guys were looking to?
Oh my God. Yeah.
To create that deal.
Yeah. And it's the age old adage, you know, hindsight's 20/20. Yeah. But definitely in that. I mean, even with me being like a former soccer player, like it's if I knew then what I know now, you know, but you don't. And I think that what I try to do is be the coach that I wanted and that I needed. Like that's who I want to be for these kids.
Yes.
And so, you know, again, that's my own personal experience. Yeah. But I see things that I wish that I was told, that I was taught, that I was made to look at a certain way. And that's who I want to portray, and that's who I want to be for them.
That's awesome. I relate to that a lot. He and I both work in schooling as well. So like I deal with a lot of those common themes of like my approach to that is just literally exactly how you worded it. And that's why I relate to it so much, is like be the person for the kids that you want or that you needed when you were there that you didn't have. And that's exactly how I try to go about managing that role.
Yeah. And you know, it's tough just because every kid's going to respond to what you do differently. Yeah. You know, so for instance, today, like I'm looking and like I knew what I was doing. I was doing it on purpose, like getting on them and be like, no, like you're messing up. You're doing this, you're doing that. Like just to be like, here's the flip side of the coin. I don't want to be like, I go, guys, I want to have to say literally nothing because that means that you're doing everything that I'm asking you to do. And I said, but I'm gonna coach you hard because that's what we need to do to get to where we want to be. Yeah. And I'm looking across the field and like I'm seeing some kids be like, oh, like, you know, like, when's he gonna stop? And then other kids like pissed, and like just working harder and playing better. And I'm like, those kids need to take these kids under their wing, and be like, and sometimes like the common threat or the, you know, like I need to be the bad guy to bring everybody else together, like as a team.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And if I have to do that, I will. I don't like to because like I want to be there. Like I want to be there. I want to have fun. I want to joke. I want to laugh. But sometimes like they'll take it too far, where it's like now we have to get down to business. Now I have to be an asshole.
It's a hard thing to do because you want to be liked. Yeah, and sometimes you have to be the guy that's the asshole to get things done in an efficient way.
And so I'll rephrase that a little bit, where it's not necessarily wanting to be liked, because you're not always going to be liked, and chasing that is going to turn you into a person that like you're just going to be like, yes, man. Oh, well, what can I do for you? Yeah. For me, it's more about being respected. Yeah. Because they could respect you and not like you. Yeah. Like I could be yelling and, you know, whatever else and being a pain in the ass to them, but at the same time, they could still respect, you know, my knowledge and my vision and how like I treat them for the most part and whatever. Yeah. And like in that moment, not like me. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, that's a good thing to keep in mind, especially when you fall into that trap of people pleasing. Like, I'll do it, but not really speaking your mind. But I think when you speak your mind and express your truth, you're respected for that.
Yeah. And I found out that, you know, sometimes those conversations aren't the easiest. No. Yeah. But more times than not, the fallout from those conversations is going to be better. And, you know, people will sit there and be like, okay, yeah, like it was like, that was tough. Might have not agreed with everything he said or did or whatever, but like I look at him in a different fashion. Yeah. And that's, you know, whether it's coaching, whether it's professional, whether it's personal, you know, speak your mind to an extent when you need to. Yeah. You know, also know when to shut the hell up. Yep. You know, like when to not say anything. And, you know.
I have an interesting way I want to flip the page here. So I have this idea. I call it like my mental pie chart, because I'm one of those jack of all trade kind of fellas where I have a lot of things that I'm interested in and that I want to do and that I'm experimenting with. But you made a good point in saying that you have to compartmentalize these things and properly schedule them so that you can get to all of them and water all of these plants so that they all grow. So I'm curious, what does your mental pie chart look like with all of the things that you're balancing, and what has the biggest slices currently in your life right now? So like mine would be like martial arts has a good slice, maybe 45%. And then there's podcasting has a nice slice as well. And then there's renovating and working on this house has a nice slice. And then I have obviously times for my friends, my family, training my dog, and then maybe learning Spanish and then all this other stuff that I'm doing. So what does yours look like?
It's different. It's I don't want to say ever changing, but like the colors are constantly moving.
Agreed.
You know?
Agreed, yeah.
And I don't, like, you could have, you know, your long-term big idea, you know, type plans, but that doesn't happen. Like the macro doesn't happen without the micro. So I tend to try to look at it like a few days or a week at a time and be like, okay, what do I need to accomplish this week or in the next few days? And then I will prioritize like, okay, like these emails have to go out because this thing has to be shipped and that's time sensitive. This thing could wait a little bit until I get like some of these other things off of my list. And that way I found myself, like there are times that like I'll be overwhelmed. Like I was overwhelmed today a little bit, but it doesn't necessarily become like crippling. If you could sit there and have a plan, because a lot of being overwhelmed is like knowing that there's all of this stuff, but it's chaos. It's not and you don't have any sort of like game plan on how to tackle it. But when you do, you kind of like, all right, I'm good. I have to do this, and then I have to do this, and then I have to do this, and then I have to
execute.
And at the end of the week, you're like, yo, I got those 15 things done, and I never thought that I was going to get them done. You know, it's just like running a mile, and you get the first lap around the track, and you're like, oh, this is terrible. And then before you know it, you're like coming down the home stretch, and you're like, okay,
It was like our conversation earlier about the fireman, knowing your next step, being prepared. That's very important for virtually anything you're doing. Like one thing he and I do for this pod is like we do like this, for example, like where we prepare for a podcast or like an individual we're doing a show with. And I didn't even look at this one time really throughout the entire pod. I probably didn't ask anything that's on here either. But like one thing it does is like it gives you like an actual time where you force yourself to sit down and just prepare. And that's like my main reason in doing it. Not necessarily to like have the list to pick from, but knowing that I at least put the time in and verbally prepared myself for what I was getting into.
But not only that those pieces of paper give you mental clarity. For the simple reason that if you came in with nothing, there's that little bit of anxiety. Like, what if this guy's boring? Like, what if I don't have anything to talk about? You know, a lot of dead air. Like, I don't know if you guys watch It's Always Sunny.
Nah, Philadelphia.
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Such a good TV show. They decided to do a podcast, and they're sitting there, and Frank Reynolds, who's played by Danny DeVito, he's sitting there like eating saltine crackers, like smacking into the microphone.
My God.
And like nobody's talking because they're like looking at him like, what the hell are you doing? He's going, dead air. But you have that. So like this could be more organic, whether you look at it or not, because now you know that you have that backup plan where if, you know, things kind of are going south and we're not having the conversation that we're having, you have the confidence, okay, like I have these bullet points and we could talk about those. So,
I mean, man, we've been there so many times. I think you were just saying earlier that like you had watched like some of the Corporate Nightmares episode that we dropped where we were talking about some of those themes. And that's exactly what we did in that episode. Well, first off, we were just having a bad day to begin with, but then we decided on top of that to not prepare for the pod at all. And like in the Corporate Nightmares episodes that we do, it's just he and I. So in theory, you don't necessarily need to prepare because it's just us two and we know virtually the idea or the theme of what we want to talk about. But when you add in not being prepared to do something that like you put a lot of passion into on top of already having a terrible day, it's just a recipe for a disaster. Because I hate when I let outside forces like that, like negativity or that kind of energy affect something that I love very much like this. And that's exactly what happened. And
but it's those things, it's all very much in your control. It's just about figuring out what tools work for you, because what tools work for you might not work for you. And vice versa. And what tools work for you might not work for me. But figuring out those tools of, okay, how do I hit the reset button? And then that just, you know, it helps you move forward throughout the rest of your day. But not for nothing. You know, doing those podcasts where it's just like we're gonna wing it. Sometimes that's where you're gonna get the best content from.
Absolutely.
You'll go down a rabbit hole and you guys will be done putting the things there and be like, well, that was awesome.
I think we got into a rabbit hole last time about Somalian pirates or some
shit. As everybody does at some point in their week.
But that's what's awesome about like our personality specific, because like don't get me wrong, I love the podcast in which we sit down with like really cool individuals. That's like what got me into doing this. But one of my favorite things about podcasting is like the little dumb episodes we do with our friends, like where we do this thing where we'll sit down and like we've been going for an hour 45 in this pod. We'll sit down for 4 hours, record the entire thing, and watch the UFC, like where we just bullshit and laugh and joke. And then we do another one, we call it NSFW, not safe for work, is the translation, where him, our other friend Brian, who lives here, and then my friend Jake, we get together and we'll smoke cigars, we'll drink a little bit, and we'll just talk shit. And like those episodes are some of my favorite because it kind of takes one of the elements of this thing out, where it's like it's not as serious as I make it in my head, and you kind of get to just enjoy it for what it is. And that's why I love those, because an episode like this, for example, where we're meeting you today before we come up here and do this, like there's a lot that goes into an episode like this that doesn't go into one of those episodes, and it just makes it so much simpler. Like the anxiety is gone. You don't really got to worry about that. I also, 9 times out of 10 when we're doing an episode like that, I'm not worried about how people are going to perceive it, like the people watching. Yeah. I just do it because I enjoy it. But these episodes, like, it's like an extra added like labor of like what we have to do. So like a podcast like this is severely different than one of those. But I love those podcasts. Like I love doing it.
It's funny because the group who like talked me into, you know, doing the merch, they were also like, we should live stream our lifting sessions. And I'm like, no, we shouldn't, because like one of you dummies is gonna like I will be able to control myself, but one of you dummies is gonna like say something or do something dumb or whatever. I'm like, if you want to do something where we could edit it, maybe. Yeah. Like, we're not live streaming. I'm like, I'm not getting canceled because of you guys.
live streaming is not worth it, because there's nothing you could do if something goes wrong in a live stream. But like with actual content, you could actually exhibit. Throw me the microphones.
That's what I wanted to get into.
We just bought these things that if you were to do something like that, I severely recommend. We didn't try it yet, but we got these things. They're like these little Rode shirt microphones. Yep. It's the same company that makes like this and like the mics and stuff. So like literally what you would do, and like he and I want to do it, is you would like clip it to your shirt or your chain or something, if I can get it open. And then like you would just be in the gym. What the hell? There we go. Yeah. And you would just be like in the gym, like lifting, doing whatever, talking to people, going around interviewing people, and you just got like this. These mics are so great. But that was like one of our ideas that we wanted to do, is like go and shoot some workout style content.
So I'll give you like the Instagram and the YouTubes of like 2 of the guys that I was telling you about, whose podcasts and YouTubes I YouTube channels I follow. And they started, like, I've been following them for probably a couple years. They started using those mics. And so like down at the gym outside of Houston, you know, there's 3 separate gyms within the complex, and the one, like, you can sit there and shirts off and whatever, and the owner will sit there, will be working out. He has like his own private space, but he'll wear, you know, like a chain and just like, or whatever around his neck, and throw one of the microphones on there so he can sit there and talk. And I mean, he has basically a crew of people following him around all day, taking videos and cutting and editing and whatever else. But those things are huge, because now you could go on the road and, you know, do essentially whatever the hell you want to do.
Have some cool ideas.
Yeah, we do. We got a couple things in the tank. But like you were saying earlier, it's like not over-promising. Like we want to under-promise and over-deliver for like our plans for that kind of stuff. Because like...
And don't tell people.
Yes.
Because it's like, it's kind of twofold, where like you tell people, and if you're a man of your word, then okay, now it's out in the universe. Now I have to do it.
Yeah, I like that too.
But you're going to get a lot of people who are putting their fears on you.
Yep.
They're like, don't do that. Well, what about this? Yeah. What if this happens? What if that? Okay, what if a plane like crashes into the house right now? Like, well, at the end of the day, what does it matter?
Yeah.
You know, like, and they're just doing it because like they're not where you are. They're not ready. And it's not necessarily a malicious thing. It's just they have their own fears, and they don't see or have the vision that you have. So like, that's why with a lot of things that I do, like, people will ask me questions
in the dark.
my friends in college used to call me "Don't worry about it," because every time they would ask me about something, they'd be like, "Oh, like we saw you talking like to this girl, like what happened with that?" I'd be like, "Don't worry about it."
Don't worry about
it. Like, "Oh, like I saw like this, what's going on with that?" I'd be like, "Don't worry about it." They're like, "You don't tell us anything." And I'm like, if and when you need to know, I will tell you.
You're Italian?
100%.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. I think there's definitely something.
You can't tell because
Yeah.
What's the only way to shut up an Italian? Tie their hands.
Don't worry about it.
I think there's something
Forget
to the
about
pressure.
it.
There's something to the pressure though, and that was like what really jump started this whole thing for us. Oddly enough, now that like I kind of see it from the opposite end of the spectrum, it was like putting it out there that we wanted to do something like this is what really kind of in essence what made me decide to go all in, because like I refuse to like be the guy that says something or I'm going to do something and then doesn't do it. I hate that. Like that's something that like you were referring to earlier. Like when I lay down tonight, like if I said some shit today that like, oh, I'm going to do this, or if I said a couple weeks ago and I didn't do it, that will keep me up at night. Like I will not be able to sleep if I say some shit and I don't do it.
But whether you realize it or not, you end up becoming that person. And there are plenty of people that I know who I've known for my entire life who I'm like, yeah, I know push come to shove, I cannot rely on that person.
Yeah.
Because all they do a bunch of this.
Yes.
And then when it comes to it, there's always some excuse or, oh, yeah, the IRS is at my house, like right now. And I'm like, what? Like, what?
That reputation sticks.
Exactly. And it does. And it's very, very tough to come back from. Very tough to come back from.
Boy Who Cried Wolf.
Exactly.
Classic theme.
What? No, nothing. I think this is dope.
Well, yeah, I mean, fuck, we've been going for almost 2. How are you feeling?
Fantastic.
It's crazy how it flies. I didn't realize we were that deep in it until I looked at it.
I was telling some of the guys that I train with that you guys reached out to me and that I was going to do this and whatever, and they're like, "What are you going to talk about?" I'm like, "I don't know. We're probably going to go down 13 rabbit holes. Probably be there for 6.5 hours. Like I don't know. It's just."
What's it like on the guest end? Like, so for somebody like you, I don't even know if we ever asked anybody this before, but like, obviously, like I was referencing before, we didn't really know you, at least personally, at all until today. What is that like? Like knowing that you're going to come on a show, you don't know the people that you're talking to. Like what is that dynamic like?
I think it's different for everyone, but for me, when I approach things like this, or really like, any type of show or speaking event or whatever, you do a little bit of research just to kind of get an idea of, your personality. It's not that it's going to change my personality. But some people are going to be comfortable. Like I'm comfortable talking to pretty much anybody. It's what I do all day, every day, which is kind of why, I'm sure we're sitting here. You guys aren't looking at your notes. We're just chit chatting.
That's the idea.
And some people might sit there and they might have a lot to say.
Yeah.
They just might not be that person who, conveys it very well and they're very soft spoken. They speak in short sentences.
Yeah. We've been there. We've had some guests like that.
You gotta pull it out of them.
Yeah. But that's a hard dynamic too, especially being like slightly more inexperienced. Like when we first started this, that was hard as well. I feel like we do a fairly good, like at least a better job at that now. But earlier on, like when we were really just doing podcasts with whoever, whenever, like that was a hard dynamic because we weren't, I don't even really necessarily know that we're good now, but we definitely weren't good back then.
Yeah, the gift of the gab, it's a real skill to be able to talk.
Oh yeah.
And I think you guys do a fantastic job. And it's just like everything we've been talking about. You wouldn't be where you're at right now and on your way to going where you're going without those scenarios where you're like, okay, this, I could have done this better, or maybe let's steer clear of that, whatever the situation is. But you don't know until you're in it. And not for nothing, but it's those types of things where like if you mess something up, like it sticks.
Oh yeah,
you're not gonna do that again. Because you're gonna remember. You're gonna be like, nope, not going down that road.
Especially when it's like there's something on the line, right? So like in practice, you can make a mistake and it's like, okay, I made that mistake. But when you do it in a game,
correct,
or when you do it when there's competition,
correct,
it's like, oh boy, like you don't want that to happen again.
That'll last.
But also, and it's just life that's gonna happen. And the one thing, because that, and I kind of blame the school system and just like how we teach. But like again, you only get that one shot. It's not, oh, okay, you messed up on this test, take it again so that you actually learn the stuff. It's like, nope, you failed, move on.
That's a good point.
Even though you didn't learn that because nobody forced you to learn it. So one thing that I preach to my players is I'm like, even if you make a mistake on the field, everybody makes mistakes. Go watch Messi, go watch Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Like, go watch all of these, like, players who are at the top of their game. They make mistakes. The difference between, like, the good ones and the great ones have amnesia. They forget almost immediately, and it doesn't affect the rest of their game.
Yeah.
So the rest of the time, they're sitting there, okay, you lost the ball? Good. You lost the ball for your team. Go back, make up for it. Go get the ball back for your team, and let's continue. Don't stand there, hands on your head.
That's good, man.
I should have done this. I should have done that.
Yeah.
None of that matters. The moment is over. There is nothing you could do about it. All you could do is are you going to waste the next minute, or are you going to go be productive?
That's very good. I'm gonna be a little vulnerable real quick. So we were talking about, did you win today? And there's like little wins, right? So I've been trying to create this habit with myself to like wake up early. I just want to be a person who wakes up early. I've never been a person who wakes up early naturally. I've always been sleeping in. I stay up late. Right? Yeah. And this week I did pretty well. I woke up at 6 o'clock a couple times, and I'm like, oh man, I'm killing this. And then yesterday, right, we're talking about confidence and like keeping your word. It's important to keep your word with other people, but keeping your word with yourself is maybe most important, right?
That's the hardest.
With becoming confident.
Well, that's the one you can't get away from.
Yeah, you can't get away from it. So last night I'm like, all right, same thing tomorrow. 6 o'clock I'm up, and I'm fucking in bed at 9 o'clock, and I wake up and I'm walking my dog, and I lost that. So that little battle I lost. I told myself I was gonna wake up.
Did you, or did you just take a step back and use it as a learning point for what you might do tomorrow?
Well, I'll tell you what happened. So there's a recurring pattern where I would have lost a battle like that, right? And then I would have been in my head like, yo, I suck, man. Like, I got to get my shit together. Like, I don't know why I can't figure this shit out. And I'd beat myself up. And it would just cause a negative spiral to go down.
Yeah.
But then today I kind of had this pep talk with myself like, dude, okay, we fucked up this morning. We shouldn't excuse it. We should try better tomorrow morning.
Yep.
Like, the rest of your day, you got to be on top of your shit.
Yeah.
You know, every other little thing that you're wanting to do better in your life, do that now.
Yeah.
Go forward with that, and then try again tomorrow. Like, just use it as a lesson and just try again tomorrow. But like you were saying, just forget about it.
Yeah.
Just keep going forward and forget about what the fuck you messed up or whatever, and then just try to do better when the next opportunity comes.
Well, yeah.
And that's all it is. And you sit there, and I think you have to look at your reasons, because your reasons become motivation, and motivation is nice. Motivation isn't always there. Discipline is always there. And so depending on like what your reasons are for, like wanting to wake up, I think is going to tell a lot about if you stick with it. So there's this other guy, Alex Hermosi.
I love that.
Oh
dude.
yeah,
Love
awesome,
that dude.
right?
Yeah, he's
dope.
dope.
He talks a bunch about, he's like I wake up early in the morning because I want to get X amount of hours of work before everybody else is up. I'm able to, work uninterrupted. And he goes, that works for me. It might not work for you. That time for you might be between 10 and 2 o'clock in the morning, where you're able to get that. Everybody's sleeping, and you're able to get that work. And ultimately, it's just about leveraging like your time for what your purposes are.
Right.
If you have a purpose for wanting to do that, that's awesome. If you're doing it just because it sounds cool, and it sounds nice, just to tell your buddies like, oh, I've been getting up at 6 o'clock.
That's a good
That's
point.
not going to be sustainable.
That's a good point.
That's not going to be sustainable.
Because I think I'm a savage because I'm up at 5 or 6. And I want to tell my friends I'm a fucking savage.
I'm a fucking savage.
But this is the thing. If you're
I'm waking up and I'm like,
you got nothing to do.
Yeah.
what the fuck am I doing?
Exactly.
I'm not a savage right now.
Exactly. So that's the thing. If you're waking up at 5 in the morning and you're twiddling your thumbs until 8 because you got nothing to do,
Yeah.
well, what's the point of it?
Should have just slept in.
If you sleep until 8 and then maybe like you're up till midnight or 1 getting shit done, like those 3 hours from 10 to 1 are more productive for you than the hours from 5 to 8. It's the same 3 hours. It's just here you're like watching reruns of Family Feud.
Your shit's jumping.
Here you're watching reruns of Family Feud, for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And here you're like getting stuff done.
Working out, working on the business, reading a book, doing something.
He just said, remember how I always try to describe to you my philosophy
crazy.
on that?
Yeah.
He just perfectly encompassed what I always try to say when I say
crazy.
that. And I can
That's a
never
good point,
master. Because
though.
I'm that way. Like, believe me, I'm just like him, but kind of more for like the sake of what we were referring to before. Like, I want to be able to wake up early just so that I know I can do it and be on top of that. But I'm most productive now, like at this time of the day.
Yeah.
Like this is like, what time is it right now? Around 10
o'clock.
Oh my God. Yeah. Right now I'd have been nose deep in my computer right now getting podcast stuff.
Really? That's how I am too. I work better at night. I don't like getting up in the morning. Like, and similar to what you said, like I know I could get up in the morning because there are times where my dad and I have to go do our loop down in Lancaster, visit, you know, the network of people that we have to get supplies and so on and so forth. And I'm up at 6 o'clock to, you know, get down there before 9.
Yeah.
So like I know I could do that when I need to, and put in the long days when I need to.
Agreed.
But like when I get my actual stuff done is, you know, I'll come home after whatever it is. I'll go sit on the couch, probably throw some sports on in the background or whatever, and I'll be on my computer doing whatever I need to do. Yeah. And like I know that works for me. I know that getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and like going to do that stuff, like that's for me right now. That's not sustainable because I don't care to do that. Yes. You know, and believe me, we all want to pat ourselves on the back every once in a while and be like, oh yeah, like I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and kind of like see like what reaction you get if people, yo, like that dude's being a dude. But
good point.
Ultimately, like the only person you gotta worry about, and it's cliche, but it's true, is like what do you think about yourself? Like, are you doing the things that you need to do that make you happy? Yeah. That like you're comfortable with? Yeah. Because everybody else, like if you're constantly chasing like people being like, oh yeah, like I want to be like him, I want to do this, I want to do that, and I used to do that. Yeah. I'm not saying that happens to me now, but I will say that like especially with coaching and after teaching and whatnot, there are like groups of kids, and like my players still hit me up. They're pushing 30, and they're like, hey coach, like what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And it's because I stopped caring so much and just concentrated on being like a good person and the right person, like doing all of the like what I think are the right things in real time. Yeah. And then like the right people gravitate, and then they recognize it, and it's tough. Yeah. Believe me, it's tough because you want to sit there and everybody wants to qualify. Oh, well, I did this. Yeah. Oh, but I could do that. But okay, awesome. Like, so could I. Yeah. You know?
It's about doing what works for you and what's sustainable for you and your lifestyle and your productivity. I think is really what it boils down to, and that's what I believe you were getting at is like just really just in terms of your business and handling you and staying on top of your mentality, just do what works best for you in terms of your scheduling like that. Yeah. Your sleep schedule. And I
mean, if you get caught up in the other stuff, that's just energy that you're wasting on unproductive shit. Like it's, it doesn't serve you.
I think the waking up early thing for me was comparison. And I really do believe that comparison is the thief of joy. And I think what it was for me is I would want to wake up early because that's what everybody else is doing. Like I want to be the savage that wakes up early in the morning, just like all these other business moguls or entrepreneur guys or content creators or whatever you do.
David Goggins.
David Goggins is waking up early. Well, I want to wake up early, and I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it because I see other people doing it and I don't do it. So I compare myself to like the winners in that way. Like if they're very successful and they're doing it, well, maybe my problem is I don't do that, but it never really worked for me.
But also it's tough. It's tough to compare because again, we're seeing highlight reels for the most part.
You're right.
Yeah. Like occasionally people will sit there and be vulnerable and I messed up on this, I messed up on that, and whatever else. But you're like, it's your everyday to everybody else's highlight reel. Yeah. And it's an unfair comparison. And not for nothing, but you probably have stuff that you're better at than what these guys or girls or whoever are doing. But you don't know because you don't know what their, every day is. How many times do we sit there and, there's a celebrity or whoever who's like seemingly like the happiest person in the world. Yeah. And then you find out that like they're on drugs or like they killed themselves or whatever the situation is.
They're getting in fights in public.
You have no idea, and nobody knows anything about like what somebody's going through. It's what we see at face value and how we interpret what we see at face value. And so that like those are all of the more important things because I found and am finding that everything that like you kind of want or need just like falls into place when and how it's supposed to. And that's, that like having opened my eyes to like seeing that and realizing that, like it really has been a game changer because it allows me to like let myself live a little bit.
That's a great point, man. Wow. That's
Enrico
interesting.
Bartolini. This man came in here and just dropped gems.
Dropped some golden nuggets, as we used to call them.
Well, I appreciate you coming today, man.
Absolutely.
This was an amazing podcast. I can tell you that I'm going to go and think about a lot of this.
Nice.
And reflect on it.
Yeah, and I mean, if you ever need anything, you know where to find me.
Absolutely. Man, we'll do it again at some point.
We'll reach out. We thought would be really cool, but we thought a bit too late. We used to do travel podcasts a lot in the beginning of this whole venture, but we stopped as we got 2 more cameras because we thought it would be a bit more to manage. And
the setup's just crazy.
Yeah, logistically, how we would make that work. We had problems doing it with 1 camera and without an ATEM and a monitor and a switcher, but we thought it would be really cool to do it at your shop with all the furniture and stuff.
We could do that at some point. It would probably have to be like at night where like nothing is really going on. But yeah, they have, so again, the one guy that I'm telling you about with the podcast, he started doing kind of like travel pods, even though he built his own space in his office. He started doing travel pods because, some people, especially the people that he's interviewing, like they're like, all right, you got to come to me. Like, I don't, like,
we're going through that now.
And it's tough. So there's like, I think he got it to a point where he could like set up in under an hour, and they have like the roller cases and whatever else that you just throw everything, like you break everything down, throw everything in. And again, it's just like anything else. The first time that you set up and break down, probably going to take 1,000,000 years. As you continue to do, you could be like, oh, okay, like I could do this a little bit more efficiently. I could do that a little bit more efficiently, or I could go get this bag there where like I could just like drop things in and out.
It's trial and error. That's like what this whole experience has been so far. Like there's been countless times where we ran into problems that seemed like the end of the world at the time, but then like you just gotta, like you were saying earlier, like scientific method. That's my thing. Breaking it down, figuring out why this is a problem, how can we solve it. That's been one of my favorite parts of this whole journey so far because it was everything. Like that simple principle was everything for us in getting to where we are now. Because when we started this whole thing, we didn't know how any of this worked. The idea of podcasting was to sit down and talk. That, I mean, in essence, sure, it's easy. It's what we're doing right now. But all the other stuff, like they don't tell you how to do all that. You got to figure it out. Like how, I know I bring it up often, but like just how like a simple cable like this plug into a microphone. I didn't know what this was called before we started. And we had to figure it out. But even something so minuscule and so simple like that is a very important step in making a successful podcast or show or anything like that you do in your life.
And if it's important to you, you'll do it.
Yes.
And if it's not important to you, you'll do it. And neither are right and neither are wrong. You just understand that, okay, the things that like the thing that I don't want to do and never want to do, maybe it's just not that important.
Yes.
Maybe it shouldn't, be holding so much water, in your life. There's probably a different, scenario or a different thing or whatever the situation may be. And you have to listen to that. And sometimes it's hard.
Yeah.
But, it's just like we were talking about with friends or people in our lives. And do we want to, like this person might not be serving us, so well anymore. Like, do we want to keep them? Do we want to cut them? Like there's a process with all of it. It just comes down to what is most beneficial to you in that moment.
I like it. Enrico, thank you again, man, for coming down, doing this pod. It was a great time. I know I typically don't go back and listen to a lot of our episodes because I want to save it for a later date, but this will probably be one that I come back to and check out and listen to.
You'll be like, damn, he talked a lot.
Yeah. No, I mean,
he doesn't shut up.
I tell all of our guests, like, if a podcast makes it past like the 2-hour point, it's a good episode. We are obviously just riffing, talking about some important things, or just we got into it. So anytime we go over 2 hours, like we're almost at 2 hours and 10 minutes. It's crazy how time flies.
Yeah, no, I mean, I had a great time. You guys, nice. You guys are killing it. Very easy to talk to. Like, I think you're doing the damn thing, and I think it's just going to get, better from here.
Thank you, man. Do you want to plug any social media page, your website, shops where these people can come check out your work, see what you do, potentially buy some things? Come on, guys. What's going on?
It's at the Canning House, right?
The 900 building, 900 Rudder Ave in 40 Fort, where Canning House and Sakari are.
Yeah.
EnricoBartolini.com, EnricoBartolini. Instagram, Facebook is Enrico Bartolini Designs. Same with Twitter, TikTok.
Nice.
No, Twitter's Enrico B.
X.com now.
X.com / Enrico Bartolini.
That's how that's how much I use it. You know, I think I have a couple fantasy football people that like throw things out during.
It's
during
that
the
time
season.
of year.
That's
Let's go.
Oh,
But yeah, come come stop by, talk. I'll show you some things, and check out the content that we're throwing out.
Yeah, we'll make sure to get everything linked in the description below. But thank you guys for tuning in again. Another week. Like, subscribe, share with a friend. We absolutely love you guys. Thanks for watching.
Enrico Bartolini.
Until next time.
All right. Peace.
Thanks, guys.
Dude, that was cool.